Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cosmic Counseling, a podcast exploring therapeutic lessons we can glean from the works of our favorite author, Brandon Sanderson. I'm Joseph, a licensed marriage and family therapist.
I'm Danielle, a board-certified behavior analyst.
And I'm Gary, also a board-certified behavior analyst. And today we want to discuss the very core of Stormlight. We want to talk about that first ideal, those immortal words, those things that you're probably saying to your friends when you end a conversation by now, if you're as big a fan as we are. Those words, life before death, strength before weakness, and journey before destination. Oh, I get the chills just saying them. Just so good.
Yep, and so spoiler warning before we dive in real quick. For Stormlight Archive 124, novellas, words of Brandon, we're not going to talk about Winds and Truth like we said before. And a quick note as well is that this is a big topic. Like when we talk about the core oaths that all Night Radiant need to swear before they become a Night Radiant,
there's a lot to unpack.
Right, there's a lot to unpack. And so today we are going to focus our discussion on connecting the oaths to the idea of finding and following your personal values through the lens of acceptance and commitment therapy. You know, there's simply too many awesome things to talk about. And so we're going to visit other topics related to the oaths in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to start off just explaining very simply what values are. I'm sure there's lots of you that already know, but we're just going to keep everyone on the same page. So you could say that the values are literally this ideal. Values are a thought, a word, a phrase, something along those lines that guides your actions. It's not a one-time goal, such as running a mile in 4 minutes, something I will never be doing. So it's not one of those one-time goals. It's literally about the journey. It's what you're going to do your entire life. You're always going to be moving towards that value. It's never like, I reached my value, we're done. So it's kind of cool. It really gets me excited that the Stormlight ideals are literally values in my head. So yeah. I'm super excited for this one.
Well, and I think it's important to note like that goal to run a mile might be connected to your values. Maybe you really value health, and this year I'm going to run this mile in this many minutes, and next year I'm going to run a marathon, and I'm also working on my nutrition, and all of these things are helping me approach my value of healthiness.
Right. Like those actions are a embodiment of your values.
Yes, absolutely.
I think also just noting that your values are what personally matters to you, whether that's it's not what someone else says should matter to you. It's what personally matters to you, which I think we'll get more into with the oath.
Yes.
I guess we could give some examples of some values, some common values that people might be having, such as family or compassion towards others. Adventure could be a value that some people have. There's a whole list I just saw at work.
Right. A few other examples that I've worked with my clients on before are like courage, authenticity, kindness, compassion, freedom.
But it depends on the person too. Like I like especially like most people, a lot of people will value like their family. That's a really common one. But one of you mentioned adventure. For some people, like I need adventure in my life. Like I need new things and fun things. And other people are like, no, I want stability.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the great thing about values. Like you said before, different for everyone. I think you mentioned it in our previous episode that everyone has their own path. That's something you're really passionate about, Danielle. So values are those guide, what's the word I'm looking for? Those signs, road signs. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's like your personal compass for your path, what matters to you.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, shall we dive into these 3 ideals then? Life before death, all of those were good words?
Yes, let's go into it.
All right. Well, luckily for us, Brandon was thinking of us, and he left great quotes with Teft right in the first book that we can read through, just kind of get us going. So we'll start at the beginning, life before death. So here's Teft. Is this when he's talking to Kaladin, I'm pretty sure? Or is this just with other books too?
He introduces Kaladin to the
immortal words.
Yeah. Okay. So here's, in the words of Teft, life before death. A Radiant seeks to defend life always. He never kills unnecessarily. He never risks his life for frivolous reasons. Living is harder than dying. The Radiant's duty is to live. So,
Hey.
I mean, that's a heavy thing. What are you guys' thoughts on this?
Yeah, thinking about that life before death in terms of moving towards your values makes me think of Kaladin when in Way of Kings, when he's like in the bridge cruise and everybody's completely overwhelmed and depressed, and I think he gets some therapeutic intervention from Hoyd. And
As always.
he's, as always, sometimes more therapeutic than others. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
he starts, instead of focusing on blaming the situation, he starts accepting this is where I am, and I'm still going to follow my values. I still want to protect these people. This is still my team.
Like he had once, long time ago, when he's still in the army, he had a big depressive moment in his life after his squad is killed by Amaran, and now he's branded as a slave. Like he lost all purpose to live. But when he's in this situation again, he recognized that I can still do something.
Well, and like Teft says, like living is harder than dying. Choosing to live towards his values,
right,
instead of
down to the honor chasm,
right, instead of literally dying,
right.
Yeah.
And then also just rather than dying inside, he's living towards his values with the team. It makes me think of Viktor Frankl. He's a big name in our field. I'll give a little summary for our listeners, but Viktor Frankl's the father of logotherapy, which he developed while he was in a Nazi concentration camp during the Holocaust.
Yep.
And his book, A Man's Search for Meaning, is really heavy but really amazing, and I haven't read it all yet, but I want to. But he talks about in the concentration camp, the difference he was able to observe in the victims when they still held on to their meanings and their values and how they were living and caring about how they're living, versus when, like the bridgemen, they I don't want to say anything that sounds like they were wrong to do this, because I don't think I could handle this either, but when they were completely overwhelmed.
Right. They wallowed in their sorrows and their suffering to the point that, they were paralyzed to do anything else. They run the bridges and they just don't live.
And it was hard
because there's nothing worth living.
That was the only way to be a bridgeman before Kaladin arrived too. So they went into this, they saw everyone else, and like you said, living is harder than dying. They just figured, I'm already dead. This is damnation. So they just kept moving.
Right. But what Viktor Frankl found in the concentration camps is that when people still focused on their meanings, their values, that they were able to still have meaning in their life, and they were able to even extend their life expectancy.
Right. They're happier. They actually function even in such a horrible situation. Yeah,
like he makes really bold statements that, like, I wrote down one of his quotes here. He says in the concentration camp, they took everything from me. They took everything they could, your home and your family and even your clothes.
Yeah, your dignity.
Right. But he says, the one thing you can't take away from me is the way I choose to respond. And he was so passionate about, I am not in bondage here. I still am me, and I can still do what's important to me. And that's, I think, Kaladin is stepping into when he decides to step back up into the bridge cruise and be like, you know what? We might die on a bridge run tomorrow. We probably will die on a bridge run tomorrow. But the fact that we ate stew last night, and that I bandaged your wound, and that while I'm running that bridge, I'm thinking about my team and protecting you guys, and that we're even like we're soldiers, we're in Sadis's army, like having those values and thinking about it that way is meaningful.
Right.
Even if you still die on the bridge run.
Right. It motivated him to do more.
Right. Or even when he's doing the things he's doing, he has that value-driven meaning in his life.
Right. Absolutely. And one of the really simple example that Viktor Frankl gave in his book is, no one wants to go clean the bathroom. And I cannot imagine how horrible it is to do that in the concentration camp when it's a horrible situation to begin with already. But he always does it without being asked. And when the Nazi soldiers asked him, questioned him, like, why are you doing this? Like, no one asked you to do this.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I value health and we have to have good hygiene. So I'm just going to go clean. I'm just going to go clean that so that no one else gets sick from disease or illnesses. Like, he went and did the job that no one else wants to do, and he is happy about because it is important to him that people can be healthy.
That's
So-
amazing. Yeah. That reminds me, I just finished reading Rhythm of War, and towards the end, Kaladin has a vision of Tien, if you recall. And Tien, you get to see when Tien dies, and he actually volunteers to lead that charge. And that quote from Viktor Frankl reminded me of that no one wants to clean the bathroom, no one wanted to lead that charge where Tien ended up passing away. But I think Tien says it to Kaladin later that it's the moments that we have right now. And so if you can make those moments right now better, then we're all in the Stormlight world. This is what they say. We're all going to the same place anyways. So we might as well enjoy those moments that we have right now and then laugh about them all later. I think it was something like that, but it was a really cool moment of just enjoying those moments of living, even though you have to clean the bathroom.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And having that meaning during life, before death.
Yeah.
And I think another reason why this oath is so meaningful is that it is only when we live that we get to decide what we do, right? It is a lot of times living is harder than dying.
Yeah.
But it's only when we live we can uplift other people, that we can protect other people, that we can continue to do things that moves us toward a trajectory that we want to. That I am going to live, like, that is a powerful statement. Like, no matter how tough things are, my duty is to live so I can continue to serve. Like,
Yeah.
oof, yeah, chills
It's
down my
powerful.
spine, man.
It's
It
super
is
good.
so powerful. And I really I've worked with a lot of trauma clients, and some of the things that they have experienced in life are horrible. And the fact that, I always make sure when they come in to see me for the very first time, I make sure that these clients, they know that it takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of humility to walk through those doors.
Mhm.
And that what they did walking through those doors is telling me that they have a desire to live. They have a desire to have a better life. They have a desire to keep moving forward instead of being shackled by these by the scars from their past. And I made sure to always recognize that with them and take a moment to appreciate just what it must have taken them to be here today. And let me tell you, the times I had them just burst into tears because oh my gosh, like, I'm getting emotional, but just a lot of times those are the first moments that someone had told them that in a way that, like, tell them that, hey, I see you and I see your suffering and you are brave to be here today.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that, Joseph. That was really profound. I hope anyone listening out there, you guys know as well that you're brave for being here today. You're brave for taking that next step. Always take that next step. Remember that life
Yep.
before death.
Yeah.
Approaching your values is, I mean, a lot of times it's what gives you meaning, right? And that, a lot of times that's joy, but sometimes that's not fun.
Right. It's a lot of
Not at
pain.
all.
But it's meaningful,
Right.
you know.
Mhm.
Right.
It's really living
Right.
when you're being who you want to be.
Right.
With that, Danielle, I think that takes us perfectly into strength before weakness to move on to the next part of the ideal.
Oh yeah.
So here's some more wise words of Teft. He says, strength before weakness. All men are weak at some time in their lives. The Radiant protects those who are weak and uses his strength for others. Strength does not make one capable of rule, it makes one capable of service. So a lot of that leading by example, being the servant leader. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah, servant leader. I really like that one. And I love that it says all men are weak at some time in their lives. So Teft knows that Kaladin, he's not perfect. Teft's not perfect. They go through 4 or 5 books knowing they're not perfect, that we know of so far. So
Yep.
don't know what happens in Wind and Truth, so can't say I'm spoiling anything. Anyways, but they know that they're going to have that weakness. And that's something I really like, is going towards my own values, that sometimes I'm going to stumble. I'm going to have weaknesses when one of my values is family and being kind and compassionate to others. And so sometimes it's 3 a.m. and my daughter is not sleeping, and I have that weak moment of just yelling, "Why won't you sleep?" And then realizing that next time I can have that strength to do better, to go towards my values.
Right. I think strength before weakness, it's significant here, at least from what I'm seeing here, is also that it's not just recognizing that yes, I can be weak and I can be better, but also seeing. I think there's also an aspect of we need to learn to see other people's strengths before magnifying their weaknesses. I think it is very easy for human nature to see other people's flaws and magnify them, and start criticizing other people in our interaction with others, especially in a current day and age with the internet. It is very easy to simply focus on what is, what are the problems, and instead of focusing on, okay, I am human, I have weaknesses too, so who am I to judge another person that has a different weakness than mine, right? And this is not to give any excuse for when we have bad behaviors or when we make mistakes, but it is a perspective where it can provide us more compassion for our human failings, and be able to connect with other people in our weaknesses.
Well, like Steph says, strength does not make one capable of rule; it makes one capable of service. So if
Right.
you're finding yourself in a place of strength when someone else is weak, then that's not the time to judge them. That's the time to jump in and serve and help.
Yeah, yeah. And a perfect example, I think, is when Kaladin, in the Way of Kings, he had been plotting with Moash to kill Elhokar. He know it wasn't right. He still told him this is not right.
So
And
wrong.
right, like everything is telling him that this is not the right thing to do, and yet he continues to move forward with it until the moment when he realized that Elhokar is Dalinar's Tien. And that perspective, that made him realize how self-righteous and how dishonorable that he had justified this secret plot to kill Elhokar with Moash. And this is also when he steps into the true power of his value of protecting those who are weak. Right.
And eventually protecting those he hates. I think he's starting to work into that direction.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. He saw his own weakness, the fact that he allowed himself to be in this position, and then he chose to follow his strength and his values, which is protecting Elhokar. It is in his weakest moment, really, that he found his strength, that he had that clarity. And I think that is also something that we often see in life as well. As like we can find our strength when we're the weakest, or that we can make our weakness become our strength.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. You said it perfectly. I was just thinking of a contrasting example from Stormlight of the opposite side of this. I feel like this is one, at least it makes sense in my head, that it shows a lot is the strength before weakness of recognizing the skills and abilities of others versus cutting your losses and turning liabilities into advantages. I think that's what TN Squad Leader says. But it reminds me of Taravangian as well, of thinking there is no way, we don't have enough strength. And he's not focusing on the strengths anymore. He's focusing on the weaknesses of the humans. And that's why he
Right.
makes some of the decisions that he does. I don't want to say he abandons his values, because I think he does move towards his values a lot throughout the books, but he definitely isn't putting strength before weakness as he's doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
He already determined, he has already determined that humans are going to lose, Odium's going to win. And
Right.
all he's trying to do is trying to save himself and the people that he loves.
Right. Which, I mean, probably he thinks he's doing everything he can for his value of his family.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
But I wonder if he had other values that maybe he's not approaching,
Yeah.
by not seeing all of the sides of this.
Right.
Absolutely.
I mean, he says it hurts it hurts him so much.
Right.
But maybe, he values the logical pragmatism over the compassion sometimes.
Well, I think one of the things that separates Taravangian from a Knight Radiant is a Knight Radiant, their, I guess, purpose and what they aim to do is to, protect and uplift and help move humanity and the people along to a brighter future, while Taravangian had already, kind of like we talked about, had already accepted that the world is doomed. And so his vision had become limited. He had this tunnel vision of this is how it's going to happen. So I'm gonna do what I can, quote unquote. But he really isn't considering all the possible options. He believes the Night Watcher in her gifts, and he sees that as humankind salvation. And when people get desperate, we become our survival mode. Our reptilian brain gets turned on, and we have that tunnel vision, and we can't see clearly if we are always in survival.
When Taravangian's acting out of fear.
Right. He is acting out of fear, not out of value.
Right. And
That's a good way
and
to
I mean,
put it,
sometimes we need, our fight and flight processes are there on
Mhm.
purpose.
yeah.
Sometimes we need to react out of fear and pay attention to our fear to keep ourselves safe.
Right.
But you find less meaning and less value when you're just avoiding the bad rather than seeking for and approaching what is good and meaningful to you.
Right. I love that. I love that you pointed it out, that Taravangian acts out of fear rather than a specific value, and that I will say is the biggest difference between Taravangian and the Radiants. Thank you.
Absolutely, I agree. I really like the tunnel vision thing too, of focusing so much on the family. But we were saying he's acting out of fear, but like the fear for his family, that I think he does sacrifice a lot of his former values that he probably had. And I guess it's something for us to keep in mind as well, is not focusing so much on one value like family. It's great to spend time with them, but if you quit your job to spend time with them, in the long run, are you damaging your family? Are
Right.
you moving away from that value?
Right. Or if you start criticizing another family member that they don't spend time with their family as much as you do. If we are using our values to criticize others, that is not what a Knight Radiant should be doing. That's not what values are meant to do.
It's important to recognize, though, sometimes your values can contradict.
Right.
You might value spending time with your family and also value financial stability, and you can't do both at the same time all the time.
Right.
You got to kind of balance, how do I approach both of these to the best percentage I want to be in each place?
Right.
Or what and who I want to be overall.
Yeah. That's a great thing about values. They evolve over time with you, and more come in and kind of all make a little value web almost. All right. Well, then let's move on to the final part. This is honestly my favorite part of the of the immortal words. Journey before destination. This one's the one that always gets me. So once again, we're gonna hear from our good friend Teft. Journey before destination. There are always several ways to achieve a goal. Failure is preferable to winning through unjust means. Protecting 10 innocents is not worth killing one. In the end, all men die. How you lived will be far more important to the Almighty than what you accomplished.
Oh,
Um,
amen to
so
that.
good. Yeah. It's almost like we don't need to say anything more, but we're going to anyways.
Right. Class dismissed, guys. We're done here. Tef just nailed it.
Absolutely. Wise man, Teft. Like a grandpa. But what are your guys' thoughts on Journey Before Destination? What really resonates with you here?
I love Journey Before Destination because it is a mindful mindset. It asks us to pay more attention on our step-by-step journey rather than focusing so much on the destination. And one of the I don't know why this is coming to mind right now, but when I was growing up in Taiwan, at school, the goal is to get good grades. I think all schools are kind of like that.
Yeah.
I'm sure there are schools out there that are wonderful that focuses on the actual learning experience, but as far as my experience goes, growing up in Taiwan, what matters is that 100% on your test scores. And that is, I would say that's not a very encouraging way to approach learning. At least I felt discouraged for most of it.
Like you value learning.
Right. And I hated it. Like I feel stupid a lot of times because I can probably count the amount of times with one hand that I've actually scored 100% on the test. And that can be very discouraging because I focus so much and the system focus so much on the destination, on this result, on this outcome. And it really robs the joy of the journey of like learning to love learning, of actually tapping into the natural curiosity that we as humans have about why is that, and I think kids are great. They keep asking why, and that is the perfect thing, right? I often tell my clients who ask me how do you deal with that. I say, well, you go with it, right? If your kids are asking you why all the time, try to see it from their perspective. They don't know anything.
Yeah.
They don't understand anything. That's why they're asking why. They are curious, right? And the more we have learned and grown, the more we forget what it is like to be ignorant. And to still have that curiosity to learn about why is something a certain way. Why is what drives us to learn, that desire, that curiosity. And I think for me, that is one of the important principles that Journey Before Destination is trying to point out, is that the moment to moment, the step by step, the mindful experience of the presence is more important and more meaningful than where you're going than the destination. Of course, we want to be sure that we're heading toward a good direction, right? We want to know that I'm going on the path that I have chosen that I know will be good for me. But once we set that, we don't have to focus so much on trying to get there as fast as we can.
And you can't always control your arrival at that destination.
Right.
You might love learning and enjoy that journey, but you might not get that 100%. And
right.
Kaladin on the bridge runs can focus on that journey and being a team and protecting his bridge crews. They still might get shot.
Right. But that doesn't stop him from trying to protect them. And that was Kaladin's first big struggle is that he need to learn how to focus on the journey rather than the fact that he failed to protect some of his bridge crews.
Absolutely.
Because if he had only focused on the destination, he would have give up after another bridgeman fell during a bridge run, because he had failed to reach that destination that he wanted to be.
He struggles with this one a lot, back and forth with it.
Right, he does.
Constantly.
He does. Right.
And I think they all do. I think all the characters do. Kaladin is just the most vocal about it.
Right.
He tells us every time he messes up.
and we see a lot, and we follow his perspective into his struggle a lot. And so we see a lot of these really difficult moments, but yeah.
And we'll see those in our lives. We'll have our values that we're trying to work towards, and we're going to have a couple steps back.
Right.
We're going to have times that we mess up on the journey, but the journey is about that gradual growth and about always approaching those values, not about reaching any sort of accomplishment.
Right.
Absolutely. I think that's something that I really like about values, is it's not some fixed end goal for your destination. I'm going to use Kaladin as an example with his bridge crews, because his destination at that time was protect my men and hopefully we can escape. And his actual destination, according to his values, was High Marshal Kaladin, Knight Radiant, and that was years away from whatever he was imagining. Like, he didn't escape with his men. He stayed in the camp and he stayed in the war, but he became something better because he followed that value instead of just that one destination. And I think, as you guys were saying, with that mindful thought of staying in the journey, focusing on those steps, you're going to see which steps are going to most lead you to your values, instead of sticking in that preset path that 100% must get a good grade and not focusing on the opportunities that are going to come your way.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. Love that.
That makes me think of Moash.
Oh. Okay, please tell.
And how focused he was on his destination of killing Elokar.
Right. He's consumed by it.
Yeah. And research shows that your happiness doesn't come from your accomplishments.
No.
It comes from your meaningful habits and values along the way, right? Your journey before destination.
Right. It comes from the living part.
And Moash had glimpses of that. He was in there with Kaladin in the bridge crews, learning and having some similar values, right?
Right.
That he was able to value friendship and some other things there, and that he was so focused on that destination and getting there, and then when he got it, the accomplishment didn't bring what working towards his values would bring. He's still asking Odium to take his pain away, and that's where he's stuck.
Right. Because he is reminded repeatedly by himself, his own brain, his own conscience keeps reminding him that he could have been better, that he could have become a Knight Radiant. He could have stayed with his family, the bridge crews. Like, that is where he could have been, but he threw it all away.
Yeah. I think he's the perfect example of living without values. I can't think of a single value that Moash is currently following once you hit Oathbringer and Rhythm of War. I don't think there is a value that he's following. It's just do what Odium says and then go move rocks in Alethkar. Like,
his focus is get rid of my pain and justify my actions.
Yeah.
Right. Which comes to something that I often have to work on with my clients in session, is that we naturally, as human beings, we want to avoid pain. We want to avoid challenges. We want things to be easy. We want things to go smoothly. We don't want to feel pressure, feel hurt. We don't want to feel pain. And so we tend to avoid situations that could bring us pain. Or we avoid things that we perceive as difficult or hard to do. But also but when we do that, when we become avoidant to pain, we lose out on important choice points where we can choose something good, when we can act according to our values, because we are afraid. Again, acting out of fear, right? We always get this decision between fear and value. And which one are we going to listen to? Which one are we going to allow to take deeper root in ourselves? Right? And Moash keeps taking that avoidant path. He keeps trying to run away from the pain instead of facing it and actually making some changes, so that it's going to be hard for him to go back to the bridge cruise. And he knows that. But he still could have chosen it.
There's a great quote. I'm trying to remember I know what page number it's on. I just have to remember what's going on during it. Okay, this is at Gavilar's funeral. Let's see here. So Dalinar is feeling bad. Gavilar is gone, and he is talking to when he's walking, and he hears Jasna. Do you say Jasna or Yasna? I can never remember.
Yasna.
Yasna?
The audiobooks is Yasna.
Right.
Okay,
I go with Michael Kramer.
Well, this is Yasna reading Way of Kings for the first time out loud. This is the first time Dalinar ever hears the book. And this is one of Nodan's quotes. And it says, "The question is not whether you will love, hurt, dream, and die. It is what you will love, why you will hurt, when you will dream, and how you will die. This is your choice.
Oof.
You cannot pick the destination, only the path." And
right.
It always gives me chills when I read that part. Just, we're going to have hardship no matter what. Whatever value you choose, there's going to be some roadblocks. That's just a part of life. Sometimes you'll put your own roadblocks there. Sometimes someone else will put it there for you. But no matter what, you get a choice in it. You get to choose how you're going to overcome it. And you get to choose how your path will differ. And you'll get to, whatever you choose, it'll be the path that's best for you because you chose it.
Right. Going back to that Viktor Frankl point that we mentioned earlier, it is how you live that really matters, that really shapes who you are, rather than your accomplishment throughout your life.
Or circumstances,
yeah. Okay, so now that we have looked at all three of the oaths and we kind of talked about each of them, how do we start acting in a value-guided way? Because values are only helpful if we remember them. So something we want you guys to think about is, how will you remember your values, and how will you act according to your values, right? And this can come in questions that you can ask yourself every day, like, how are my actions enriching and uplifting mine and another's life? Or how can I use my strength to serve another person right now? Or it can come in, if you want to write sticky notes, if you want to create something that you will see every day. But no matter what form that takes, repetition is the key. You want to continuing to remind yourself of your values and think about how you're going to live out your day if you want to try to live out a certain value. So you can envision in your mind, before you leave for work, before you leave for school, how am I going to live out this value? We're going to put some resources down in the show notes to help you identify your own values. We're also going to encourage you to seek a licensed professionals if they're available to you, to help you figure out what your values are, if you like that.
So to give a quick example, we're each going to share a bit about how we figured out our values, or ways that we've been able to act on our values or not act on our values recently.
Yep.
I want to go first because I think it goes well with Noadan's quote just now. One of the ways to identify your values is to pay attention to the really sour and really sweet experiences in your life. And this is when something happens and it's just fills you up with frustration and anger, and it's always grinds your gears. Or on the other hand, it just fills you up with, wow, this is my happy place. This is where I belong. This is, the most joy. those moments in your life, if you pay attention to them, like
Mhm.
Noadon says, like you can't decide you will hurt, but you're deciding why you will hurt. Something like that, right, Garrett?
What you will love.
What you
Yeah.
will love, right? Like
Mm.
we're all going to have really, really sweet and really, really sour things in our lives. And paying attention to what that is for you helps you kind of get an idea of what your values are.
Right. Uh-huh.
So I have an example. Before I'd really identified my values, Joseph and I would constantly, not constantly, but whenever he had a big change in his schedule, I would get like really angry, like unreasonably so. And he would be like, I'm going to go and help so and so move this Saturday and next Saturday, which is approaching my value of helping people. And I'd be like, why are you going to help him move? But we realized that later on, one of my values is freedom. And I call it freedom, but for me, it really encompasses like keeping opportunities and doors open and having the ability to choose to do what I want when I want. So we realized that that was always a sour moment for me when Joseph would schedule something without telling me, because I wanted to know what our options were on Saturdays, and maybe there were other things that I had in mind. And but knowing that Joseph really values helping people, and when those come up, we want to talk about working that into our schedule. Also knowing that I really care about keeping doors open and having the freedom to do what I want helps me recognize when those feelings come up. Okay, this is why I feel this way. This is why it may be irrational. But how can we look at arranging, this Saturday to best meet both of our values, which usually is, I want to go help our friends move too. But just being able to recognize, like, isn't bonding me. This isn't closing doors. This isn't getting in the way of my freedoms. As long as I hear about it early enough, I think that I feel okay about it.
Right. The lesson here is always communicate with your spouse before you agree to anything. No, I'm just kidding.
Just if she's really picky, if she really values knowing what's on her schedule.
Right. And for me, I'll give a quick example of a recent failure I had. So I was, every morning, I take the dog out to relieve himself. And one morning I was out, and I think I was running a little bit late. So I was like trying to get the dog to go relieve himself and outside. And this is when someone approached me. This old gentleman approached me and asked me where a certain road is. And I was like, that road sounds familiar. I think it's that direction. So I just pointed. I think it's that direction. I'm not super sure because I'm also kind of new in the community. I'm not familiar with the surrounding street names. And he said, "Oh, thank you. Okay, I'll go that way and see if I can find it." And then I was like, "Okay, yeah, good luck." I went back in, and then as I got back in the house, I realized, I could have just pulled out my phone and got on Google Maps and told him exactly where that street that he's looking for is. I could have done that. That idea didn't cross my mind in the moment. And I still remember it because I felt so bad that I wasn't able to direct him to this place that he is looking for. Because he doesn't know. I could tell he doesn't have a phone. He doesn't really know how to use technology. And when I tried to I rushed out the door trying to find him, and I couldn't find him anymore. He's just gone.
Used your strength to serve.
Right. And I didn't do it. I was not able to live out my values at that very moment. And that continues to reinforce to me that like being able to listen to those that being able to like give time to those people that really needs them, that remembering the ordinary people as an itch dancer is so important, because there's no one else on the street that he can ask. I'm the only one there. And I'm still processing it, to letting that go, but I do believe I'm going to remember that for a very long time. But that's my example.
Which is okay.
Yeah,
Sometimes you
it
don't
is
have to be
fine.
perfect all the
Mhm.
time.
Right. Again, yeah, and that's why journey before destination is important. Like, I'm not gonna let that stop me. Right? I'm gonna continue to live my values, and now I know for a fact next time when something similar happens, I'm gonna pull out that phone.
Mm-hmm. Be stronger because of the journey. Absolutely.
Right. Let the journey be that learning moment.
Yes. Absolutely. That kind of feeds into my example. It kind of starts as a failure as well. One of my values is families. And something that I've always told myself is that when I'm able to work hard, commit myself at my job, I'm able to have a good time at home because we have enough money and I feel like I give it my all. I don't have any regrets. I don't feel like half in, half out. And then my wife got
Mhm.
morning sick. She got a nasty bout of morning sickness with her current pregnancy. And at first I was really struggling with it. Um I was like, I'm so tired from doing some extra stuff around the house, which I was happy to do. It was just draining me so much and that I couldn't give my all to my work. And I thought, well, now my family's gonna suffer because I can't give my all to my work. And then I had this moment of, well, what's your true value? And I had to think about it for a little bit. And I thought, well, my true value is my family. It's not my work. And this isn't gonna last forever. Thankfully, pregnancy is only 9 months for humans. It's not like 2 years like elephants or something. So
Right.
it is going to be a shorter period of time where I get to where I need to adjust the way I see it to follow my value. Is right now, my top priority for my energy is always going to be my family. And if I'm a little slower at work, then I've already told my bosses why, and they understood, and I'm able to follow that value. And it was a nice way that I was able to have one of those weakness moments of where I was feeling dark and down and feeling like
Mhm.
I couldn't follow my values effectively, and then switching the script in my head in order to see that I could follow my value. I just needed to do it in a different way than I normally do. And
Right.
it's been a great teaching moment. It's great to see how I love how values are just so loose. It's just not the specific end goal. It's loose enough, but still with some structure that you can find where you want to go. It's wonderful.
Right. Right. It's about that value guided action rather than the ending. Right.
Yes,
Destination.
And it's about the journey.
absolutely. All about the journey. So just as Joseph said, for all of you out there listening, we want to help you identify those values you want to live for and find ways to remember them. So use those resources that we've discussed and put in the notes and find a way to create a simple plan to remember those values and see what you can do to embody your chosen values. Well, thank you for joining us. We hope you have felt inspired to take the next step on your journey. Please share your thoughts and experiences and ask your questions using the comment function or by emailing us at fantasyframeworkstherapy@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And remember,
Life before death.
strength before weakness.
Journey before destination.
We want to thank Dr. Dave Schramm and Rex Tolanas from the Stronger Marriage podcast for their mentoring in getting this podcast started.